Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on selling cloud services to business owners and not IT managers. My name is Scott Kalanico, coming to you from beautiful Dundee, Scotland, home of the first transatlantic seaplane crossing. With me is Chris Martin from GFI Max.
Hi.
Say hi, Chris. Okay.
Hello.
Also joining us on this side of the pond is Mr. Paul Byrne with ChannelCloud. Want to say hi, Paul?
Hello, everybody.
Okay, and then one from across the pond that I think we might be having some technical difficulties with. Seth, are you still here with us?
I am indeed.
Okay, there you are. Okay, we thought we lost you for a second there. Mr. Seth Oxhandler from Cool Cat Inc. As we said, as today's webinar will be recorded and it will be available on our website, mspbusinessmanagement.com, mspbusinessmanagement, all one word, .com. Probably sometime next week is when we have it available. We'll have the audio, the video, and then the slideshow, and it'll also be on iTunes for you to download on the go. Okay, so before we get started here, we're going to let everybody kind of introduce themselves and talk about their business and what they do. Why don't we go ahead and start with you, Mr. Paul Byrne?
Hi. Paul Byrne is my name. I represent ChannelCloud UK Ireland. I also represent an MSP business based in London called Online Computing, and its cloud offering is branded as London Cloud. So I sell cloud services to end users, and I also help MSPs do this very same thing with their own client base.
Okay, Seth, do you want to introduce yourself also?
Yeah, it would be my pleasure. This is Seth Oxhandler from Cool Cat Inc. Like Paul, we also run a cloud service business, and we also have a partner program and distribution silo where we provide services to other managed service providers.
Okay, great stuff. And as Scott said, I'm Chris Martin here. I work in GFI in Dundee, Scotland. I've run a couple of MSP businesses here in Scotland, and I also formed Hound Dog as it was before it was acquired by GFI with Doug Wilson some years ago. So I've been in this game for quite, well, more years than I care to remember. And with me is Scott Kalanico, who does a lot of, well, you tell him what you do, Scott.
Well, I run and manage the MSP Business Management website, as well as I do all the audio and video here on at GFI. So if you've ever watched any of our Getting Started videos, you've seen some of my handiwork.
That's it. But we also run a kind of a community site called MSP Business Management, which is designed to help MSPs grow and run their business. It's a free site, and it's got lots of cool stuff, and some of the stuff is the webinars that you're listening to just now. So, okay, Paul, before we get started, we do take questions during the webinar. Ask questions via the chat facility. If we've got time, we'll ask Paul and Seth during the slideshow. If we don't have time, we'll circle back and we'll get them at the end. So come up with some great questions for them and put them on the spot.
Yeah, you can just ask them through that little chat interface there on the GoToMeeting format there.
Okay, Paul, take it away.
Okay. Before we get started, because this webinar is entitled Selling Cloud to Business Owners, I want to just clarify what I mean by cloud and what I think cloud should mean to you as an MSP. So in essence, your goal should be to have the ability to remove everything behind the client's firewall and present it back to them via hosted desktops to any device. Now, I've listed out some of the main components of the stuff that you can now do from the cloud. I won't go through them all, but as you can see, there's a lot of large components of a typical on-premise IT solution listed here. So there's really very little you can't do from the cloud these days. So I just want to put this out there because there's lots of definition of what cloud is and what it's not. In my world, both from a ChannelCloud perspective and also from an MSP perspective, this is what cloud is, and this is what we dish out to end users, and this is what you should be aiming towards.
Okay, I guess, Seth, does that tally with your thinking?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The cloud is providing services to the business, not on-premise. Anything that's not on-premise for us is the cloud. So I have to concur with Paul wholeheartedly.
Okay, great stuff.
That's great. Good to hear we agree, Seth.
We'd be in a lot of trouble if we didn't right now.
Yeah. Now, just to prove that I'm not the only person saying this, I just dug out some quotes. So this is a quote from a lady at Gartner in February of this year. So really, the theme of what I'm going to be saying today is, hey, folks, stop selling technology. If you want to have success in the cloud, selling servers and RAM and gigabytes of this and gigabytes of that and bandwidth of that, et cetera, is not going to make it happen for you. You need to change the way you do things now. So you need to focus on selling business outcomes. And you can see Gartner are pretty strong on that too. Second quotation. And I'll just be quiet for a second so everybody can read this. Okay. So, just want to show that it's not just me saying this. Okay. So, why sell cloud to business owners? Now, I'm saying all this on the basis, because I own an MSP, I'm saying this on the basis that you have predetermined that cloud is applicable for the SME in question. If it's not applicable, then stay on-premise. If you stay on-premise, it's not a problem because you secure the business either way. So everything I'm saying to you today is on the basis that you've determined with the business owner that cloud is appropriate for them. Okay. There's a thing called blue ocean versus the Red Sea. And the reality is there are very, very few MSPs out there, especially in the UK and Ireland, that are offering true cloud services, i.e. all those services that I highlighted on the first and second slide. And just to show that to you, what I've done, I'm going to try and hopefully this works. So I've conducted a typical search in Google, and the search criteria is Cloud Computing Service Providers UK. And I'm just going to zoom out here. And what I'm trying to demonstrate here is there are very few providers of cloud in the UK right now.
Did you say something there?
Yeah, I wanted to add to what Paul is saying because I did the exact same thing here. We're located in Jacksonville, Florida. I did the exact same Google search, and I found a surprisingly few number of cloud providers, not only in my area, but in the southeastern United States as well. What Paul is showing is typical of the industry internationally.
So I guess what you're saying is it's a greenfield thing. So let's get in.
Yeah, well, it's something that we call blue ocean. Now, if you typed in IT support services providers in the UK, you'd find that there was a lot of red dots, and we call that the Red Sea. So it's very bitter and very bloody.
Okay.
Now, just on that point, Seth, that you raised, ChannelCloud US in San Diego would say the very same thing. There are very few MSPs out there doing cloud properly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same thing in Jacksonville.
So that's yeah. So that's a good reason as any to get into this, because get in early. Again, cloud is a great enabler because it allows you, probably for the first time in the history of IT, to have a real impact on somebody's business. Because the reality is, up to now, we've all been providing servers and bits and pieces on site that, yeah, they have an impact, but not a business-wide impact. Cloud allows you to do that now. And I say climb the food chain. The reality is, you're the guy they call if their servers bust. I say you got to move away from that now. You got to climb that food chain and become that trusted business advisor and somebody who can sell business outcomes.
Yeah, Paul is exactly right. You know, previously the paradigm was to be a managed service provider, you just provided services wherever they were needed. You know, that model has gone away. And metaphorically speaking, you know, before what we were doing was being plumbers. Now we're becoming the utility companies.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. So if you're in direct contact with the business owner, you're obviously going to get a quicker decision from that person. And business owners are essentially, they're interested in the bottom line. They want to see what the impact is. They're not interested in the technology behind it. Now, if you can do that, you can gain higher recurring margins. The reality is, most of us in the IT services industry suffer from fluctuation in our monthly recurring revenues, especially around project works, with on-site upgrades, etc. In the cloud, it's more consistent and it's recurring for at least 3 years. Now, in turn, there are fewer dips in your revenue stream, which in turn will deliver higher net margins, which ultimately will increase the value of your IT services practice. And that's why we all do it, right? We all have an exit plan at some point in the future. But I firmly believe that cloud will allow you to realize true value in your business at the time of exit.
I think, can I just say something there, Paul? When I exited a managed service provider here in Scotland, and largely the value I was able to get for that business was based on recurring revenue. So I mean, recurring revenue counts a lot more.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Because the reality is, if somebody's going to acquire an MSP business, they're not interested in revenue. They're interested in the recurring revenue piece, so that they can get a quicker return on their investment. So I agree with that entirely. So, how to get to the business owner? Well,
can I say one thing? We are getting lots of questions. I think we're probably going a little bit too slowly to throw them in the middle of the webinar, but keep firing in the questions and we'll circle back at the end.
All right. Okay. Okay. That's a kick. That's a kick for me.
That was a gentle one.
Yeah. Okay. So to get to the business owner, first and foremost, you must understand how they operate. You must send in your C-level resource. Do not send in a sales exec to sell business outcome to a business owner. That for me is a complete waste of time.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Which goes back to reiterate his point about not talking technology to the business owner.
Yes. Now, and the reality is, and I think we'll all accept this, that the lower level people, they're not interested in the bigger picture. Essentially all they want to do is protect their turf, and who can blame them? Right, how to sell to business owners. I believe you've got to build trust in relationship with that business owner. It's a lot easier today for business owners to acquire IT.
Just one thing, Paul. There's a couple of people asking in. I know what it is, but just explain the term C-level.
When I say C-level, I talk about CEO, CFO, COO, so the equivalent of an MD or an FD here in the UK.
Yeah. Or CXOs.
Here at CoolCat,
CXO, I'm not familiar.
Here at CoolCat,
what does CXO stand for?
I think it's C, generic. Oh, it's like a wild card. On you go.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Here at CoolCat, we refer to those positions as the Vice President of Pocket Change.
Right. Okay. So a lot of MSP owners that I meet are from a technical background and don't spend too much time looking at their P&L statements and balance sheets. Well, we believe that you now need to start doing that. And when you start speaking to your business, to your prospects at C-level, you need to be comfortable talking this language. This is what business owners typically care about. Understand what their goals are and understand their existing pain points and help them solve them.
And you probably have or have experienced similar ones in your own business.
Yeah. And that's a really good point. One of the things that ChannelCloud encourages its partners to do is, if you're going to have any success in selling this stuff to end users, the first thing you need to do is use the stuff yourself.
Exactly.
Because in reality, how the hell are you going to sell something or support something that you don't use yourself? Okay, back to this. You also need to demonstrate upfront how your solution is going to resolve their pain points and also address any business goals that they've set out for you. So let's look at some of these business outcomes that we're talking about. So again, we're not selling technology anymore. We're selling business outcome or business benefits. Now, most of us would probably agree that most SMEs run outdated IT systems, and in some way it limits them in terms of creating new business themselves. So find out what those pain points are and address them. If you can address those, that's clearly a business benefit of cloud. Try, if you can imagine, IT no longer exists on premise. So the shift of risk has been passed to the provider. So there's no internal risk anymore. That derives benefits in cash terms. If there is an internal IT resource or a part-time resource or an admin person doing mundane today IT tasks, those tasks will be reduced substantially. And we believe that you will achieve higher staff productivity. If you think about it, if their hosted desktop is available to them from any device at any time from anywhere, you will get more productivity from those people. We estimate that it's at minimum 1 hour per week, which equates to 5 days per annum. You gain financial control. Now, what we mean by that is if you acquire an on-premise solution today, you factor in growth for the next 3 or 4 years. So you've just purchased this resource that you're not going to use fully for 3 or 4 years. In the cloud, that does not exist. You assume, you consume what you need, and you pay for what you need.
And the cloud also reduces the exposure for responsibility for maintaining the platform. And that's another aspect to take into consideration when you're talking to the business owner about the reduction in cost and the ROI, because you can explain to them that if their admin makes $100 an hour and it takes them, 50 hours to maintain this, there is the instant cost savings by going to the cloud.
Indeed. Naturally, if you're not buying this stuff outright, you get to hang on to your cash. So this is the whole CapEx versus OpEx arrangement, so capital expenditure versus operational expenditure. The other big benefit about not doing something on a CapEx model is that you do not have to depreciate those assets on a monthly basis, and that's a big cost saving. Now, how much time do SMEs consume auditing their software every year? Okay, I accept not all SMEs do it, but at some point they have to conduct such an exercise. In the cloud, that becomes pretty much non-existent. So again,
absolutely, and that also relates right back to the cost in terms of man hours to do this. And one of the considerations that you can present is if you've got 5 different platforms, you've got 5 different vendors. There's 5 different contracts to maintain. What is the overhead in personnel time to do that, as opposed to Paul's point where you go to the cloud, which ensures software licensing compliant and it eliminates that expenditure.
Indeed. Now, naturally, the cloud comes with a lot of business continuity built into it, and DR becomes very, very possible in the cloud. Now, you should factor in the cost of doing that on-premise.
Actually, I'll take Paul, Seth, I'm going to take a question here because it speaks right to this point, and I know it's something you guys both feel passionately about, so I'm going to serve you up a ball that you can whack right out of the
softball, they call it.
Okay.
What do you call it? The baseball part?
No, the googly. That's the cricket.
Okay, so this is from Patrick Judge. What about the underlying assumption about cloud providers being more trustworthy to execute on best practice management simply because hardware gear is not on premise? So why should we trust cloud providers more than on-premise stuff?
Can I start on this one?
Yeah, okay, go ahead, Seth. Yeah.
Okay, well, at the basic level, especially speaking about my company and the way that we do it, we operate from inside a triple geographically redundant infrastructure. Here at this facility, we have 3 CAT diesel generators that provide triple redundant electricity in case of an outage. Unless you're a Fortune 500 company, you don't have that on site. Okay, so just from the standpoint of survivability, going to the cloud gains more survivability for your infrastructure. If you can provide survivability and impress them about continuity, you are providing a more secure solution.
We had a good question actually, and it's slightly offbeat to that, but I think Scott's deleted it.
No.
What was the one? But how do we know they're not going to go bust?
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
That's from James Crowe. So I guess financial robustness is an issue.
Yeah,
that's a great question, and partly what you're doing when you are, like any relationship, and I'm sure all of us have been in a myriad of relationships personally and professionally. At some point, you are taking a leap of faith, and what you need to impart to the business owners is that the leap of faith with you is safer than the leap of faith of leaving the systems on premise.
Okay.
From my perspective, 2 points. One, the ChannelCloud platform is spread across 5 different data centers in the UK and Ireland. That's the first point. So there's lots of physical continuity there. But as important to that, there's an entity in the UK called the Cloud Industry Forum, and it is the first time in my experience in the IT industry where there's an entity who's trying to govern how cloud is delivered to end users. Now, those of you who are not familiar with it, the entity is called the Cloud Industry Forum, and if you want to do cloud and do cloud well, our advice to you is to become certified by the Cloud Industry Forum, and it addresses all those questions. So, for example, today, if ChannelCloud UK Ireland fails financially, we have it written in our policies what will happen in the unlikely event that that were to happen.
Okay.
Now, and that's all covered, as I say, by the Cloud Industry Forum's Code of Practice. Go check it out.
Okay, should we shoot on to the next slide because we're
sure. Okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be a robust Q&A session. I can tell you that right now.
Okay. Now, naturally, if there's less IT on site, there's less need for admin overhead to maintain it and manage it. Okay. So the question is, how do we equate all these outcomes and benefits to your client's bottom line? Now, to do so, you need to understand the annual revenues of your client, their staff numbers, and their average salary. Now, this is not an exact science, but these are good pointers. So in terms of removing limitations and pain points of existing on-premise solutions, try and sit with the business owner and say, hey, if I could wave a magic wand and I give you this IT system that you've always been longing for, what would be the impact? How much more stuff could you sell? Right, try and figure what that out. Try to figure out what that relates to in dollars or pounds. Eliminating business risk. So if there's less downtime, obviously that's a benefit. So try and calculate, try to determine if there's been any downtime in that business for the last 2 to 3 years. If it is, find out for how long, and then you can factor in the loss of revenue and the cost of those non-productive staff while the system was down. Okay.
We thought you'd gone.
Yes.
There was a long pause there, Paul.
Yes, so I'm pressing the button. Here we go. Okay, sorry. Sorry, folks. There was a bit of a delay there. My apologies. Okay. Yes, so here we go. So in terms of freeing internal resources from mundane day-to-day tasks, naturally, if there's less need to carry out these tasks, then there's less money to be spent on human resources to do so. If you can get an additional hour, and I'm being very conservative here, if you can get an additional hour of work from each member of staff, that's naturally going to have an effect on revenues. So now that you know staff numbers, now that you know their average salaries, now that you know their revenue, you can start working this stuff out. Naturally, if you're not paying for this massive resource on premise that you're not going to use for 3 to 5 years, that's obviously a cost saving. So in terms of CapEx versus OpEx, in the OpEx world, you get to hang on to your cash. So your cash is sitting in your bank account, and it can earn interest. Now, I accept interest levels are not very high currently, but it's worth something over a period of years. You save time in terms of auditing software. In large SMEs, that can be quite a daunting task, and I'm talking days of work per annum. You factor that into an ROI, and it's quite an impressive figure, I can tell you. So also factor in how much it would do, or how much continuity and DR options would cost on premise. You'd be surprised as to how much this stuff costs. Because the reality is very few SMEs ever cost it out. And naturally, with reduced admin overhead, it's less time on salaries spent managing IT. And
Seth,
that is essentially it.
Seth, do you want to add in anything about how you would pitch the cloud to business owners?
Well, I think a lot of what Paul's saying are all the right points. And, you know, you got to keep in mind that, and I know this from personal experience, having sat in a conference room with business owners and business managers, you know, I have a little bit of a technical background. I used to be a senior network design engineer at Waterhouse Investor Services. I worked for IBM Global Services in the disaster recovery group, managing IBM's clients in IBM data centers in Western Europe. So I have the ability, unfortunately, to talk very technically, and I have tried to impress business owners with my technical acumen only to watch them look at their phone, check their watch, wonder when I'm going to shut up, and you have to be able to speak to them in their language. Okay? 10 years ago, I used to be able to sell services to the IT manager. He's not the one writing the check anymore. It's the business owner, it's the CFO, it's the vice president of pocket change. You have to be able to speak to them in their language.
Okay, we had a good question actually that came in. As somebody said, I can't remember the name because I was reading it at the start there. That's all very well, but how do you reach the C-level execs?
Sometimes you can...
Sorry, go ahead, Seth. Go ahead.
Well, you know, sometimes it's as easy as pulling a marketing list, buying a list that has their names on it. You could use resources like LinkedIn, okay? Sometimes you have to start at the bottom with the gatekeeper and work your way up, but that's all part of the process of selling cloud services.
To add to that, I would suggest a couple of things. One, speak to the business owners you currently know and know well. And ask them to put you in contact with other business owners, because most SME owners know other business owners. Secondly,
absolutely correct.
Secondly, I would say there's great value in communicating with your prospects and clients saying, hey, I'm conducting a cloud workshop. Why don't you come and meet other CEOs who have the same issues as you, and we'll sit around the table and we'll have a chat about cloud and how it's going to impact you, and what the benefits are. And you will be surprised how many people you will attract.
Okay. Okay, so I guess, I mean, we actually got finished a little bit quicker than I would thought there. So what Paul and Seth have put up there is their contact details if you want to take it offline, take any discussion off with them. Well, I'm going to give Paul and Seth a little bit more time to talk about ChannelCloud and CoolCat and what they want to, maybe a couple of minutes each, and they might be able to tell you what they might or what they think they can help you with. And then we'll do a wee bit of MSP business management news and, for a couple of minutes. And then we'll come back and we'll take the questions because there is shed loads of questions. So off you go, Paul.
Right. Well, maybe to support this, I'll just go back to the first or second slide. ChannelCloud's reason to exist is to help those MSPs who do not wish to build out their own cloud platform. Most of you will know that it's quite an expensive exercise, one, to acquire all this stuff. And also it's difficult to find the technical resources to put all this stuff together. Now we've done this exactly this both in the US and the UK, and we basically have wrapped our arms around this and we're offering it out as a complete solution.
Okay, so good stuff. That's very pertinent. We had a question in there from Tom Festa, just as you were typing it. It says, how does a smaller MSP provider provide cloud services without building a platform? So I guess you've hit that one out the ballpark. Off you go, Seth. Okay, Seth, do you want to talk about CoolCat?
Yeah, absolutely. So our company is not terribly dissimilar in our focus or presentation from what we do than Paul's. We also have made the capital expenditure and have the partner relationships in place that allow us to, and what we've traditionally done is mentored companies who provide break-fix services to becoming managed service providers by providing services in a white label pass-through fashion so that the companies who want to be or who are becoming or who are now MSPs don't have to make the capital exchange, the capital output, but have the ability to sell all the services in their name. So we partner with MSPs to enable them to do more by spending less.
Okay, great stuff. So what we have literally lots of questions, and so what we'll do is we'll just talk a little bit about MSP business management, a little bit about GFI for 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll take some more questions. So what's up next for MSP business management?
Well, of course, obviously the next thing for MSP business management is I'll be cutting together this webinar like we do every time, and it'll be up on the mspbusinessmanagement.com website. We'll have the webinar audio, the webinar video, and we'll also have the slides available for you to download. And as well, that'll be also on iTunes too. You can go put the MSP business management and Seth and Paul and Chris on the go.
And we carry on writing lots of content and articles for MSPs to do various things.
Yeah, we've got Richard Tubb, another consultant over here, has been doing some video logs for us. He just did one about doing finding new business opportunities with quarterly business reviews. So we just did a little video about that. So that's interesting. We're trying to keep the site interesting and fun. And every Friday is Retro Computer Friday, when I dig up a really old machine and just kind of write about it. I think we had the DataPoint 2200 system last week, which was interesting.
And I think what Scott's done is he's fired me from MSP Business Management, and yes. I'm getting sent to something else. So this, I think, will be my last webinar. This
is Chris's last webinar with us, so we're going to have to find some. I promised him I'd play him a little bit of Freebird before he left. So before we get to the questions,
so I think we've got somebody lined up here who's got a very smooth voice. He's like voiceover man, and we're trying to persuade him to come and host the webinar with Scott here. So in terms of GFI news, in February we are finally, after a bit of trouble, releasing our online backup built into the GFI Max dashboard. There's been a few issues which kept us from releasing that. I think we originally intended to release in November, and it's been delayed a couple of months. Next up after that is our Linux agent, which is finally hitting the road, and understands for the GFI Max users out there that we have a new product roadmap coming out this week or next. And Caroline McClelland here in the office asked me to make a plug for our global customer conference series. We ran a customer conference series all around the world last year in various continents, and we've got conferences in UK, US, Australia, and Germany. So I think that's all the news from MSP Business Management.
Just to let everybody know, I'll remind everybody at the end, but Paul will be joining us again next month for our webinar. We've decided not to fire him. We liked him enough to keep him. And
the money's good too, Scott, right? The money's good too, right?
Yeah, and that'll be on transitioning from an MSP to a CSP, so that should be very entertaining. And let's get right down to the questions.
Okay, so what will we go, from the top down or the bottom up, Scott?
Let's go to the top and be polite. Yeah. The Q, as you guys say over here.
Okay, so here's a question from, I think it's a spelling mistake, Jason Steen. He's read an article saying cloud services could be affected by the mega upload and jetform.com domain shutdown by the US government. And in fact, he's heard from some companies that their IT lawyers are stating that the company should not be putting anything up in the cloud. What's your thinking?
Seth, I'll let you start with that. I'll let you start with that, Seth.
Okay.
Someone's going to shut down the internet?
Well,
Al Gore.
I think the vibe was that lawyers are saying don't put it in the cloud because it's not safe. So.
Yeah. Well, we could have a whole separate conversation about lawyers, but in terms of safety, you're not going to get the same survivability of infrastructure in a telco closet in the office that you're going to get co-locating in the cloud. Period. The end.
Oh, I don't know. I think my data cupboards were pretty cool. So, do you want to talk to that, Paul?
Yeah, I got to say I haven't heard this. But hey, but what happens if stuff stays on premise? You've still got the same problem, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul's absolutely right. And here in the Southeast, we lots of business owners are concerned with hurricanes, storms, flood rises around low-lying areas on the coast. You're not there. I have yet to see any company that is not a Fortune 500 company that has the same power, survivability of infrastructure that the data centers we use or even our competitions use. It just doesn't happen. You'd be hard-pressed to find a business that has 7 different carriers or 12 divergent carriers for connectivity, as well as a triple redundant power source. It doesn't exist. So you're not going to get the same level of security, connectivity, and survivability in your office. It's not going to happen.
Okay, that's a fair point. So this now question is from David Lawrence, and I think you probably covered it in the webinar, but are business owners really looking for cloud providers? That, do they know or are they interested that they should be looking for cloud providers? In my experience, they're just looking for somebody that can help them with IT, and irrespective of the delivery mechanism of those services.
Well, absolutely correct. They don't, they may not know they're looking for cloud service providers. What they're looking for is to do more by spending less, which speaks exactly to the first couple slides that Paul brought up. That cloud, those are the benefits that cloud provides.
Yeah. So I guess
that's why you also can't talk technology to these guys. You got to talk to them in their language. P&L, numbers, ROI.
Took the words right out of my mouth there, Seth.
For me, if somebody's looking for IT advice, if you're doing your job properly, you'll be able to advise them both on cloud options and staying on premise and evaluating the difference between the two. If you can't offer advice around the cloud piece, well then that's a big cog in the wheel missing. So while I accept cloud is not for everybody right now, you need to be able to do both and do both well.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. I mean, there are some people that say you have to only, you should only take clients that will match this business model. Well, not everybody has the ability to be pigeonholed into providing services in a single way. So you got to take what Paul said into deep consideration, because you, like the business owners you're going to be talking to, have to look at your bottom line. You have to keep making more money.
Okay, so this was actually a comment rather than a question, but I'm going to turn it into a question. It's from James Crode, I think. I think we maybe asked one of his questions earlier. He says that I've found that big companies will benefit as people recognize Microsoft, i.e. they get familiar with the cloud, so don't worry about the convention aspect. But so both you guys, tell me about the 800-pound gorilla in the room, Microsoft Office 365 and Google Business Apps.
Yeah, well, I hear about Google Business Apps all the time. And
how much time do we have? How much time do we have?
Well, you go first, Paul.
Folks, bottom line is if you allow Google Apps or Microsoft Office 365 into your client base, well then you might as well close your front door.
Perfect. He's absolutely correct. And the one thing, you know, that gets brought up to us all the time. And you know what we always say? Hey, when there's a problem, who at Google are you going to call?
No one.
Exactly.
So given that a lot of MSPs are Microsoft partners, I mean that's quite a big change for them.
Absolutely. But you have to be in the position of propagating your business, selling your services.
Okay,
and,
sorry.
and you can't do that by enabling Microsoft. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, for example, CoolCat's a GFI partner. We can promote GFI because that is to our benefit. The GFI partner program is not like the Microsoft partner program. You're not going to be in competition with GFI like you will be with Microsoft.
Yeah.
Okay.
Folks, the thing for me is that if your client is interested in Office 365, go talk to them, go explain what Office 365 can't do. It is not a complete compute environment.
Okay.
And you know, if anybody out there can survive on £8 commission in year 2, you know, and 3, well then good luck to you. Because I think in year 4 and 5 you might find that Microsoft, because they've already contracted directly with your customer, they're already invoicing your customer directly. My guess is that they're going to start offering more services to your customers that will squeeze you even more. And frankly, I have very little respect for any MSP who allows that to happen.
I mean, I have to say, Paul, the Microsoft model, the way they're trying to motivate, or for want of a better word, their MSP and their channel partners to take their product into the market, seems to me to be fundamentally flawed, and as you just said. So, I think we hear you loud and clear.
Good.
Okay, so I'll pick another question. There's a whole load of them, so let's go to the bottom. Actually, there's somebody talking about pathetic margins on Microsoft. So there's so many to choose from. That's just fine.
Whoa, look at that one.
That's a long one. That's the longest question in the world I've ever seen from Patrick Judge. Here's a question then. This is from Joel Ruth, and I think what he's talking about here is if there's a catastrophe and there's no access to the cloud via the internet or for whatever reason, then your clients may want to have an interim solution that's a cloud-based backup that's local. How do you square that circle, Paul?
ChannelCloud offers its partners to offer what we call a reverse backup. So in addition to all the redundancy in the cloud and the offsite backups and the offsite email archives, the client, the end user, can also copy their own data back to their own premises. We call that a reverse backup. So in the event that the internet goes crazy and we lose it, you can put your arms around your data.
Okay, and what about you, Seth? Do you think that's a viable?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, well, you know, it's very interesting. We have an offsite backup platform that does exactly what Paul said, but almost in the inverse. So our application makes a local copy, and then it sends it over the internet to our geographically redundant data centers.
Okay, so that's. There's a question here from Benjamin Salisbury, and it's really directed at Paul. In fact, what he's asking is there equivalent to the Cloud Industry Forum in the US? So it's probably Seth would answer that. What do you think, Seth?
There is not currently a governing body, but there are several cloud-type certifications. If you Google cloud certifications, there's several out there that you can get.
I can tell you because ChannelCloud is a founder member of the Cloud Industry Forum. I can tell you that the Cloud Industry Forum is looking to set up a chapter in the US, and that is active as we speak.
Nothing would be better than a unifying body to refer to.
Absolutely.
And you know, if there, and for those of us that are here in the U.S., we should see what we could do to make that happen faster. It's a benefit to all of us.
Mm-hmm. I think this question here from actually Alistair Williamson is pertinent to that, and he's making a comment more or less that there have been issues relating to data ownership when applications are based in the cloud, like who owns the data. And I think, you know, part of the Cloud Industry Forum is to clear that problem up. What do you think, Paul?
Absolutely, and there's a clear distinction about who the data controller is and who the data processor is. In the cloud world, if you extract somebody's data from their on-premise systems, put it into the cloud, that data is still controlled by the end user, not you. You are simply a processor. Now, there is new legislation, I believe, being created from within Europe, and I think that's going to it may change that relationship between the data processor and the controller. But for now, certainly ChannelCloud sees itself as a data processor, not a controller.
Okay, so anything
Yeah, I'd have to concur with that exactly. We are the processor. We do not own the data. That is the client's information. And you know, in regards to like our offsite backup platform, when it installs, only the client gets the encryption key. So that's kind of like their proof of ownership. We can't recreate an encryption key. So, you know, they absolutely are the ones who have access to the data. Here on our side, it's all encrypted. We could look at it. It's all ones and zeros. It means nothing without the encryption key.
Okay. There's a question in from TJ Whelan, and this is a question to me. Do you have an update on your online backup? As I mentioned earlier on, we are fairly confident of shipping that before the end of the month in February, and you know, you should see that in your GFI dashboard. Here's a question, and it's from a chap called Jamie Shankland, who I believe is actually here in Scotland because I've met him a few times. And what he's asking is, are small businesses interested in the cloud, or is it larger companies? What do you think, Paul?
Well, from first-hand experience, I can tell you from my own MSP business, which we branded as London Cloud, our smallest client, who is completely in the cloud, employs 5 staff.
Okay. And what about you, Seth? What was your view?
Tell me the question again. Are small businesses
is the cloud really for?
Small businesses may not realize that they need it. And what we need to do when speaking to the business owner is convey the business reasons for moving to the cloud. It's a resource, they just may not realize how viable it is for them. So part of what you're doing is educating them.
Mm. I agree. I mean, I'm also work with another software company here in Dundee, and these guys were straight out of university about 3 years ago, and they just never ever installed a server. They went straight to the cloud 3 years ago, and their business has grown, and that's gone with them. So, early adopters, small guys. I think, Jamie, it's for everybody. It depends what fits.
Yeah, I think just to finish on that point, if anybody on this webinar today was to start a new business next week, the likelihood of any one of us buying a server and putting it on premise are very slim.
Yes, I agree. There's a question from Mike Gilani here. Is it possible to get this presentation document? He wants to share it with other people in his company.
Yes, yes. Everybody will you'll get an email from the conference software that will give you the exact URL on MSP Business Management where you can download that. So that will probably be like Tuesday or Wednesday. Look for that.
Okay, so here's a question from TJ Whelan. I think it's a good one, and we'll put this to Seth first. Are you recommending dual ISP connectivity for cloud adopters?
Yes, but when I say that, for cloud adopters, I say that from the point of view of someone who's sitting inside a data center where multiple carriers are coming in. Part of the value in providing cloud services is the redundancy that can be had in the cloud as opposed to the cost of that redundancy on premise. Here, we can sell internet connectivity for $30 a meg with no transfer rates. You're not going to get $30 a meg from any telco company delivering a dedicated line. You're going to pay for every dedicated line. Here, if one of the lines goes down, hey, there's 9 others. It's not a problem. Here, we have a triple redundant power infrastructure. How many businesses have a triple redundant power infrastructure? So you're going to get much more benefits by moving to the cloud. You're going to get the redundancy that you can't build into an individual business office.
I think what's the question like, more at the customer end? Is it worth investing in a dual connection?
If you are providing cloud services, yes. But how you make that investment to leverage it will depend upon your own finances. How much can you afford? I mean, I'm sitting inside a $75 million infrastructure.
Okay. Okay, Paul, have you got a view?
Yeah, absolutely I do. Because most SMEs that I speak to and that our partners speak to will always raise internet connectivity as a real concern. Now, it depends what technology you're using to deliver these hosted desktops back to your clients. In our world, we deliver Citrix hosted desktops, and we require 30K of bandwidth per desktop. So we don't require big fat pipes. The thing that's important to us is the latency between the on-premise users and the data centers. Now, if we by default recommend that each SME has a failover line of some sort. If both lines fail, we can still deliver the hosted desktops over a 3G stick. So we don't see internet connectivity as a real issue anymore. And when 4G arrives in this country, it's internet connectivity is going to be seamless. As far as
okay. Actually, this is a question. I'm not sure. I hope I've got the name right here from Leonard Knoll. Would you say that, Scott? Leonard Knoll. No. I hope that's not a spelling mistake. And he's making a comment, but I actually think it's a great question. And he says, FYI, my client lawyers tell me there's no way they would move to the cloud, but they all use Dropbox. And I think what the point is there that people say, oh, the cloud, the cloud, the cloud, but most people are using it in some shape or form. What do you think, Seth?
Absolutely correct, and that speaks to the point that we made earlier about educating them as to what exactly the cloud is. They may already be, these guys in the question from the individual, he's stating that they don't want to go to the cloud, but they're already using it.
Yeah. They
need to be educated as to what it is so that they have a better understanding.
I have a point to make on that. That is this. A lot of MSPs, when they eventually secure a cloud deal from an SME, the SME then says, okay, show me your legal contracts that protect my interests. And this is where most MSPs fall over because they have no cloud, they have no end user agreement to present. Now, which is exactly why ChannelCloud has produced these legal agreements for our partners, which have been aligned to the code of practice as defined by the Cloud Industry Forum. So it's a big, big area. It's fine having all the technology, but if you don't have the legal documentation to back it up, well, then you may start again.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that we look to do is impress them on the survivability through the service level agreements that we provide. So in our service level agreements, it speaks to, the survivability of their data, the survivability of the contract, what our specific responsibilities are. Paul is absolutely right. You have to have those things documented. Otherwise, it's like the guys who don't really know what the cloud is. They don't really know what's going to happen in case of. And it's the in case of point that cloud sells.
Mm-hmm. I think that's probably all. We've got loads of questions, and we will have to cut short there. I want to apologise in particular to Patrick Judge, who sent in a cracking question, but it was just too long to read out because I think it would have taken me a minute to read it out. And
I'll send it to you in email.
And I would have got all nervous anyway. And so sorry about that, Patrick. I wanted to make the point that GFI in October, GFI Max, we acquired a company called Monetus, and our thinking behind that was to provide cloud monitoring and cloud management services from inside the GFI Max remote management dashboard, which would allow MSPs to carry on serving multiple customers from one dashboard and you know, doing a great job for them in the upcoming cloud era. Yeah. So yeah. And in fact, I'm going off to work more on that rather than the stuff I've been doing here at GFI. So that's what I'm off to do. I'm not disappearing. I'm going to do something new. So I think what I'd like to say is, Paul and Seth, it's been a great job. There's been, I think, probably more questions today than we've ever had.
Yeah, that was a great webinar.
There is
awesome.
There's about 50 rants about Microsoft. So if there's anybody from Microsoft listening, there is a lot of people unhappy.
Come back, so be sure to come back next month. Paul will be joining us again for how to transition from an MSP to a CSP, Cloud Service Provider. I think, Paul, if you want to copyright that. Did you make that up, Cloud Service Provider?
No, I did not. It can, it can be a Cloud Service Provider or a Cloud Solution Provider.
Okay, either one of the two. All right.
Either one will do.
As we said, it'll be up next week, probably Monday or Tuesday, if I'm very ambitious, and you'll get it automatically in your email, and also include a link in there for registering for next month's webinar as well with Mr. Paul. We want to
Can I just make one quick point about the GFI services?
Sure.
You know, as a company who uses GFI Max as their RMM platform, that's a great way to get started. There are also other peripheral services that GFI provides in the cloud that you can also start right now utilizing to gain greater monthly residual income. They're peripheral to the RMM platform, but they should be core to how you're making your money. And I say that with great earnest because it's core to how we make our money.
And I would just like to point out, there was no financial inducement involved in that, and that was a bit of a surprise, so thanks for that, Seth.
Disclaimer.
So that's great, and so thanks, Paul, thanks, Seth, thanks for everybody tuning in. Apologies to Patrick Judge, thanks to Scott for being my buddy on the webinar series over the last year, and
I apologize, we did have some technical problems, but it looks like everybody showed up in the right place, so that's really the important thing.
So I'm out of here, so great stuff, guys, thanks a lot.
Okay,
thanks a lot, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye.
We'll see you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.